When the Subaru Ascent was announced, many people questioned if it was going to end up being like the Tribeca, Subaru's first attempt at a three-row crossover that ultimately failed and has become more of a cult following and cult classic more than anything else. Here we are 6 years later with the Ascent, and sales figures have been very respectable. Subaru learned a lot from their mistakes from the past, and they gave you a vehicle that was practical, that was also affordable, and quite appealing, giving you a vehicle that has a lot of safety features and interior comfort that a lot of buyers are demanding in the 2020s. In today's video, we're going to check out the premium trim. Now, this comes in at under $40,000, and even though it's not going to receive all the bells and whistles, it might be the best value in the lineup today. Now, before we get in this video, I want to give a huge shout and thank you to Subaru of Wakefield in Wakefield, Massachusetts for letting me come down here to check out the Subaru Ascent. Their link will be in the description below, so you can check out their extensive Subaru inventory. So as always, let's begin with pricing. The model we have today is the Premium, which comes in just above the base. However, there is one thing that makes this vehicle rather unique in its segment, and that is the fact you can choose between a 7-seat and 8-seat configuration. So you can't get captain chairs in a Premium. That's not too bad for a lower trim like we have here today. But pricing will differ between the 7 and 8-seater. So with the 8-seater, that comes in at just under $37,000, whereas the 7-seater we have today is just below $38,500. So about a $1,500 difference. When you take a look at what these vehicles are offering, it's pretty much identical. However, with the 8-seater, you have to opt for a convenience package, which comes standard on the 7-seater, and we'll go over that in a few minutes. However, with this being a 2024 model and the Ascent going through a mid-cycle refresh late in 22, not much is different here in regards to the overall styling of this vehicle. So the front fascia still looks dynamic, it looks sporty, it looks more aggressive than it did before, because the pre-facelifted Ascent looked rather boxy and really wasn't compelling on the roadways. Now, for 2024, you will have steering responsive LED headlights. That's standard for all trims for 2024. However, with the Premium, you do not get LED fog lights. I'm a bit surprised by that because you get the fog lights for the Forester and Outback Premium. I'm going to guess that that will be offered in future model years down the road. One thing that does stand out to me about the Ascent that we're no longer seeing in the Subaru lineup is the chrome accents. Notice the chrome strip that runs through the front grille and into the headlights. We don't really see that anymore. Subaru's moving away from that for more of a gloss gray look, which I think is actually a better design than what we have here for the Ascent. But also the Ascent is a bit of a older model in the lineup compared to what you have with the Forester and Outback. Now, you do have a gloss black grille, which contrasts very well with that chrome strip. However, it would look even better on a different color shade that we have here for the body color. Then as we move over to the side profile, the Premium does come equipped with 18-inch alloy wheels. On the higher trims, such as the Touring, you're looking at 20. So if you want an optimal amount of on-road comfort, the 18s would be the way to go, but also this is your only choice for the Premium trim. One thing that does impress me here with the Ascent is that you will have turn signal indicators on the side mirror caps, but more importantly, blind spot detection. That's typically not found on a Premium trim in the Subaru lineup, and usually that is an optional package or optional feature. I'm glad to see that it is standard for 2024. And as you make your way around to the back, nothing new here at all for 2024. Same taillight design, also of course adding some symmetry to the overall look of this three-row. You have the chrome accent and chrome strip that runs through the rear fascia and into the taillights. But then also you have a chrome bumper guard, which I think is really nice when you are loading some heavier items in the back of your Ascent. Then for the lower portion of the rear bumper, you're going to have very aggressive plastic cladding for that rear diffuser, but also dual exhaust outlets, which looks very good on a vehicle in this market. Taking a peek under the hood for the Ascent, you will have a 2.4-liter boxer 4-cylinder engine, producing 260 horsepower and 277 pound-feet of torque. As always, it is paired with a CVT. Better yet, Subaru symmetrical all-wheel drive does come standard. Now, for those of you wondering if the 2.4 is more than adequate for an SUV of this size, we're going to find that out later on when we take this vehicle out for a quick test drive. But one thing I will say though is that the 2.4, whether you're taking a look at it in the Ascent or the Outback, that would be my personal choice from Subaru. I think it's a great engine, it is potent, and falls right in line with other vehicles in this market. Then in regards to fuel economy, you're looking at right around 20 miles per gallon in the city and 26 miles per gallon on the highway. If you're looking for more fuel efficiency and you don't need a third row, probably take a look at the Forester or Outback. Before we hop inside the Ascent and check out what the Premium has to offer, let's quickly discuss this convenience package that is available for the 8-seat configuration that does become standard for the 7-seater that we have here today. So for $1,400, you get reverse automatic braking, a power liftgate, keyless entry with a push-button start, and an auto-dimming rear view mirror. For $1,400, I think that is a great value. Now, when you're going for the 7-seater, that's just an added bonus of getting a vehicle with some creature comforts that you already have here with those captain's chairs. So I would say if you are looking at buying a Premium for 2024, make sure you equip it with that convenience package. Stepping inside the Premium, you're greeted by heated cloth seats for both the driver and passenger. But the driver's side is 8-way power adjustable, whereas the passenger will have to manually find the ideal seating position. That isn't too much of a surprise at all in the Subaru lineup, as we've already experienced with the Forester and Outback. In regards to seat comfort though, they do provide a decent amount of support. Also, the back seats are very comfortable, so on a longer drive, you will not be complaining about any back pain, which is most important. But also, the seat comfort is very similar to what I experienced in the Outback Premium a few weeks ago. Looking ahead of you at the technology that you have here at your disposal, you will have analog gauges, and in between those gauges will be a small information display where you can check out information such as your remaining fuel range, your fuel economy statistics, your diesel speedometer, tire pressure monitoring system, and outside temperature and time. And you can scroll through all of that by using the buttons on the left side of the steering wheel. Also found on the steering wheel will be the buttons for your adaptive cruise control settings and lane centering, and then mounted behind the steering wheel will be your paddle shifters, which most likely you won't engage in this vehicle because it isn't a sports crossover. But if you want to have some fun on some winding back roads or when you're entering highways and you want to feel like you're driving a vehicle with a traditional automatic, maybe you want to do some upshifting with that. Then quickly taking a look at the infotainment system, you will have an 11.6-inch touchscreen with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto compatibility. A wireless phone charging pad is optional but not equipped on our model today. With the Premium, you will have 3-zone climate control, which is great to see in a vehicle priced under $40,000. On both sides of the screen will be physical buttons and dials for the volume and tuning, front and rear defrosters, and dual-zone climate control up front. At the bottom of the screen will be the controls for your 3-level heated seats, AC, fan speed, and fan direction. You can also control the temperature for the second row as well from the bottom of the screen. For the main head unit itself, it's basically a tablet, so you will have quick access icons for your radio, media, phone, apps, and settings. And at the bottom of the screen, you'll notice a car icon. By pressing down on that, you'll now have access to your vehicle dynamics control, your X mode, cruise control acceleration speed, auto vehicle hold, and steering responsive LED headlights. Next to that will be your driver assistance tab for your pre-collision braking, lane departure warning, and rear vehicle detection, such as your blind spot detection and rear cross traffic alert. I would leave all these settings on, just my take and my opinion. And lastly will be your more settings tab for your warning volume levels and also units of measurement. As always, you will have a rear backup camera with trajectory, and since we do have the 7-seat configuration, we do have rear cross traffic alert and also reverse automatic braking. For the rest of the interior, you will have a cubby for a smartphone with a 12-volt outlet. Beneath that will be a USB-A and USB-C input and auxiliary outlet. Next to your gear shifter will be 2 cup holders and the electronic parking brake. And for the center storage compartment, there's plenty of room for smaller items, including a couple of my GoPros, but you can also store a couple small water bottles and other gadgets, so it's great to see for a vehicle in this market, especially since you will probably have some items for your kids in the second and third row in this storage compartment. Lastly, there is no power moonroof here for the Premium. To receive that, you will have to go higher up in the trim levels for 2024. Then quickly taking a look at the second row, since we do have the 7-seat configuration for our Premium, you have captain chairs. And for a vehicle under $40,000, you're getting the optimal amount of comfort here, especially for people in the second row. Obviously, third row passengers are going to be feeling cramped. This isn't a vehicle the size of a Chevrolet Suburban or Cadillac Escalade, so that's to be expected. If you just have a smaller family and you want to prioritize comfort, to me, this would be the way to go. Also, because we don't have the panoramic moonroof, you have a lot of headroom as well. So taller passengers can sit in the second row and they won't be hitting their head on the headliner. Now, I adjusted the seat in front of me all the way back. It's also somewhat on a recline. And I still have more than enough legroom here. So I think you can have taller passengers sit in the second row. It's a great family vehicle at the end of the day. Better yet, with these seats, they do slide forwards and backwards on rails to maximize legroom for the second and third row. But also, these seats do recline. So you can just relax and enjoy the driving experience while your driver has to deal with the horrible other commuters out there on the roadways these days. Better yet, as I mentioned before, you do get climate control for the second row where you can adjust the fan speed. You can also turn this off if you want to. You have a USB-C and USB input. And lastly, for the center console in front of you, you will find 2 cup holders. And finally, for the third row, it could be worse. It could most certainly be worse because I have experienced worse in this market. With the Ascent and with the seat adjusted all the way back, I have about maybe an inch or 2 of legroom left remaining. So I think you can have smaller kids in the third row, and that is huge, especially if you are on a stricter budget and you don't want to spend over $40,000. The Ascent is giving you a practical choice here. I will say though, I am sitting in a bit more of a ball here, so my joints are going to be hurting after a longer drive, but if you have smaller kids back here, no one's going to be complaining. Better yet, and I didn't point this out for the second row, you do get air vents, so you can stay nice and cool on a hot day like today, or then of course during the winter you have that warm air coming down on you, which is pretty nice for a vehicle in this market. On both sides of the third row seating area, you will have 2 cup holders, but there's no USB or USB-C outlet back here, so everyone should have their smartphones and tablets charged before entering the back of the Ascent. Then as you make your way around to the back for the Ascent with the Premium, as I mentioned earlier, you can receive a power liftgate if you go with the 8-seat configuration, but since we have a 7-seater, that does come standard. And inside, behind the third row seats, you're looking at right around 18 cubic feet of room, which is fantastic. In fact, it will be closer to the top in this market. And I love seeing 3-row crossovers have close to 20 cubic feet of room behind the third row seats, because then I'm able to fit all my camera gear. So I have 3 bags of camera gear, a gimbal box, and a tripod. And I still had more room to stack on more items. And this is on top of the fact that we have the floor mats, both the cloth floor mats and the all-season floor mats. So I think that if you are going on a road trip with the family, or you're just doing some day trips, you can store everything back here if you have kids in the third row. Then with the third row seats folded, you're looking at right around 43.5 cubic feet of room, which would be on par with a lot of vehicles in this market. So if practicality is what you're looking for, you're going to receive that with the Ascent. Then finally, with the second row seats folded, you're looking at right around 75.5 cubic feet of room, once again falling right in line with all of its closest rivals and competitors. So that's ultimately why you're going to want to go with the Ascent. Whether you do need that third row or not, it's more practical than the Forester and the Outback. And when you factor in the pricing at around $38,000, $39,000, that's really not too bad at all. And then finally, tucked beneath the floor mat, you are going to find a spare tire. So if you encounter a flat on your road trips or travels, you can fix that and be back on the road. And now that we've gone over everything, let's take the Ascent out for a quick test drive to see how it performs. I've always looked at the Subaru Ascent as being a 3-row version of a Subaru Forester, but with the heart and soul of a Subaru Outback with the turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. For a lot of vehicles in this market, they're engineered primarily for comfort, also practicality, and being family friendly, which is exactly what we have here with the Ascent. But a lot of buyers, a lot of enthusiasts, a lot of people who are into the automotive market will overlook a vehicle like the Ascent because it's not like an Acura MDX, BMW X7, or Audi Q7, because it doesn't have the element of being sporty or performance-oriented, despite the fact that we do have the Turbo 4. Now, for a lot of vehicles in this segment, like the Chevrolet Traverse, Honda Pilot, even the Toyota Highlander, you're going to get a vehicle that is one-dimensional. It's primarily for someone with a family. And the Ascent does that very well. Not only do you have a potent powertrain here with the 2.4, but the way Subaru has tuned this CVT, you don't get the droning and the rubber band effect that you would experience typically from a CVT, as we're going to demonstrate right here. It mimics gear shifts quite well. And this powertrain is rather quiet. Now, I will say though, compared to a Forester or an Outback, there's a lot more body roll here that is exhibited, and that's to be expected. It's kind of top heavy, you don't have that lower center of gravity, and again, the suspension is a bit softer, what you're going to find in those two other crossovers. And with that, the steering is going to be very light, more light than what you're going to find in any other vehicle in the Subaru lineup. However, it is pretty direct and responsive, and helps out with the maneuverability of a vehicle of this size. As mentioned earlier, you are going to have paddle shifters, so if you really wanted to, you could rotate the gears yourself, but most likely that's not going to be the case with a vehicle such as this. More importantly though, it's going to be the suspension and the road noise, or lack thereof. Well, you do have the body roll, while you're not going to feel really connected to the roadways. The suspension goes over the bumps and imperfections quite well. It absorbs those bumps, and then for the road noise, you don't really hear a lot of it. And Subaru's done a very good job with the Subaru Global Platform, focusing on the rigidity, focusing on the refinement, and the Ascent is no different than what you're going to find in other vehicles in the lineup. Now, for those of you who are wondering about overall vision being behind the wheel of the Ascent, A-pillars are somewhat aggressive, so you are going to have some blind spots when you are approaching intersections or red lights. Then taking a look at your side mirrors, they are decently sized. I can see what's in my blind spots. And then looking out back, I lowered the third row of seats today, but on higher trims you can get a digital rear view mirror, which I would definitely recommend, especially if you want the creature comforts. That will give you better visibility looking out the back. Also, seat positioning, you do sit pretty high up. You have a nice commanding feel and presence over the roadways. You can see directly what's in front of the hood. So you're going to have a lot of visibility, and that will add to the safety and reassurance when you are behind the wheel on a daily basis. So let's get on the highway here. Let's see how the Ascent merges with this 2.4. And you do get an adequate amount of power here. And a decent amount of mid-range torque, so you can pass slower drivers with ease, and at highway speeds it feels really composed on the roadways. Now, some of that can be attributed to the smaller tire size that the Premium receives over the Touring, but for a vehicle of this size, with it being squared off with that boxier shape, I find the road noise to be more than adequate in this market. Best of all, out of a 3-row crossover, it is very comfortable even with the cloth seats. They provide a decent amount of support and bolstering when you are on the roads, when you are in twists and bends, and they do give you some sensation of having those seats hugging you when you are in the corners. While I do think that the Ascent's biggest criticism is that it doesn't have the flashiest styling, it's not a vehicle that's necessarily going to draw your attention, and even though you have the Onyx Edition trim, there's nothing like a Wilderness, there's no sport trim, so the Ascent has kind of been this vehicle that's solely for a larger family, but doesn't have the rugged attributes that you would find out of the Crosstrek, the Forester, and the Outback. I would love to see Subaru go in that direction though, because with Honda having the Trail Sport and other vehicles in this market going with more of a rugged look, I would love to see Subaru double down on that for their 3-row. I am pretty impressed with the Ascent's responsiveness, that there's really not much of a turbo lag that you'll be experiencing once you're on the highway and when you want to change lanes or pass drivers. And that's important. Obviously, this is not going to be a vehicle you're going to be taking on some winding back roads or some mountain roads and canyon carve. But as a daily driver, as a family hauler, as a 3-row crossover that you're going to be having your kids in the second and third row, this does its job very well. It fulfills its role very well. Which is why for a 3-row under $40,000 to start, This is a great choice, and we're seeing that with Subaru sales. I don't think you can call the Ascent a failure by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, in a very competitive market, the Ascent sales figures have been very respectable in the US, and when you factor in all the safety systems, the comfort features, and just the overall value, it does make sense that Americans have been drawn in to what Subaru is offering here with their 3-row crossover in the lineup. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more, and I will see you guys next time.